Hello and a warm welcome to another episode of South Central with me, Jude Sannith. Remember, you're watching India's first and only news bulletin exclusively dedicated to getting the lowdown on important stories, talking heads, policy news, political and boardroom action from the 5 southern states. So on that note, let's take a look at everything making headlines at this hour. Now outlines its capex plan and says headwinds in healthcare are here to stay. The Puducherry police turns down actor-turned-politician Vijay's request to conduct his next political roadshow on December 5th and asks the actor to conduct his public meeting on an open ground instead. Supreme Court asks the Election Commission to consider extending Kerala's SIR deadline. The court calls the state's case just and fair. Delhi High Court permits Dr. Reddy's to continue production and export of semaglutide but restricts sales till March 2026. And 2026 may be India's most vulnerable year in terms of cyber threats. So how are companies shoring up their defenses? Coming up next, our chat with Thiruvananthapuram-based cybersecurity firm Prophase on some of these strategies. Right, first up on the bulletin today, India's cyber threat landscape will face unprecedented complexity in 2026 due to a convergence of technological advancements, geopolitical tensions, and sophisticated criminal enterprises. This is what a report by cybersecurity major Kaspersky says. In fact, between January and June this year, Kaspersky Enterprise Solutions blocked over 200,000 spyware attacks on Indian organizations. That's 273% higher than the same period last year. Now, while this made India perhaps one of the most targeted nations for malware, AI adoption has also powered a spike in ransomware attacks, according to cybersecurity firm Acronis. In fact, a report by Acronis says that 12.4% of all monitored endpoints in India were affected this year, with major threats including AI-enabled phishing and impersonation. Ransomware remains the major threat for large and medium-sized businesses, with perpetrators using AI to automate these attacks. In fact, that report from Acronis adds that phishing accounts for 25% of all attacks, and 52% of these attacks targeted managed service providers or MSPs. In fact, phishing incidents on platforms like Microsoft Teams and Slack spiked from just 9% in 2024 to an overwhelmingly significant 30.5% in the first half of this year alone. So what does this mean for Indian enterprises in 2026? And is there an opportunity here for cybersecurity startups? To answer some of these questions, I'm now joined by Lakshmi Das, co-founder at Kerala-based cybersecurity firm Prophase. Hi Lakshmi, firstly, welcome to South Central. You heard me run through some of those numbers, and I'm sure you'll agree it's been a rather precarious year for enterprises in general insofar as cybersecurity is concerned. But I have to ask you, what is it that's made Indian enterprises and smaller companies so much more vulnerable to cyber threats this year?
So thank you, Jude, for having me on the show. So the question that you have asked and the context that you have set is a very much important aspect these days, right? And it's been a lot more been discussed in multiple forums globally. So what I would like to say is the threat landscape is evolving these days with AI coming into picture. It's more handy with the attackers, and they are using it for their benefits, right? So this is where we will have to evolve and keep our guards also up, and we would have to go for more proactive security model rather than a reactive one. So as we have all the endpoint security and everything in picture, it's important to have a very holistic, security, perspective with all the tools, installed at the right places at the right time, so that we have all the guards up and we kind of are always ready to tackle head on, be it whatever kind of AI fabricated attacks that come our way. So this, I feel, is the most important aspect that we need to address at the earliest. Earlier were just looking into getting, all the infrastructure right. India went on a huge digitization perspective, shifting all the workloads to the cloud in a very hasty way. I mean, they just wanted the functionality and the infrastructure to be up and running. But a little was missed about on the security aspect. So this is where earlier when security was an afterthought, now things have changed post-COVID. It has to be thought from a very important perspective, right? And rather than keeping it towards the end, this has to be integrated from the very scratch, right? From developing your applications, shifting into the cloud workloads, or everywhere, each and every aspect, you have to look into security, whether everything is put into the right places at the right time. So this is where we have to have that shift in mindset. And I believe that, we are really now shifting there and we're getting there, but it's just that the trend has been a little slow and we might have to accelerate it, at the earliest and fastest. Just like earlier we had most
Right,
of
Lakshmi.
sophisticated kind of cars, right? But the airbag and the security measures were put in later on. So it's not about focusing on just the functionality, but security also has to be ingrained into the system.
Right. And at such a time, would you say the key priority area would be quicker onboarding of anti-spyware or anti-malware? Do you think this is happening fast enough, or do you see a long way to go before companies, both big and small, go about adopting these cyber defenses?
Definitely. It's very important, as you said, to onboard the right tools at the right time. So it's not just about having the endpoint security solutions, the antiviruses, and everything in place. Now, more than 80% of the attacks are happening to the web interfaces, like the customer-facing or the internet-facing layer. So that's where most of the people are finding it as an easy entry into the system so that they could get hands on the very critical data the enterprise is holding. So this is where we have to have the right guards. As I said earlier, like it's not just about having one, pinpointed security solution. It's about having the plethora or, every cybersecurity solution working together, be it network security, endpoint security, or application security, or whatever, email security. Everything has to work in communication with each other. They have to be seamlessly integrated and work as a single, set of safeguarding the enterprise applications. And as you talk about this SMB space, right? They also have similar security requirements, just like the enterprises. They might not be able to afford it or afford the most sophisticated solution, or also may not be able to afford a very sophisticated cybersecurity team. That is where we have a dearth of, the right cybersecurity talent as well. So this is where companies like Prophase is actually coming to actually even safeguard even the mid and small scale enterprises against the most sophisticated kind of attacks, so that they have their custom requirements fulfilled through our security.
Right. For you at Prophase, the cybersecurity challenge peaked during the India-Pakistan conflict, where you blocked millions of cybersecurity attacks in just 4 days when both countries were engaging in conflict. Now, given the geopolitical landscape today, do you see such attacks becoming more commonplace, especially in the Indian enterprise space come 2026?
Definitely. That's become a very serious concern globally. It's not just about India. I mean, where recently we saw the Ukraine war and the Israel war happening, right? So before any kind of physical warfare that happens, it's a cyber warfare that, kind of comes first, right? Because they try to bring down the critical infrastructure, break the spirits of the opponent country, and then launch a physical warfare, which becomes more effective and easier, to target. So this, as you've seen, like the Israel, they created a digital army, right, across the globe to actually target Israel, and they brought down most critical assets of Israel using the digital army. Similar to that, India was targeted during the recent Operation Sindoor. There was more than 85 million kind of attacks happening in just a span of 10 hours between May 3rd to 7. So this is where we were standing guards to most critical assets of our country, especially when a cyber warfare happens. They target our airports, our energy grids, our financial setup, and our healthcare setup. So this is where Prophase, wherever they have guarded all these kind of multiple, government and defense projects, we've been able to stop all these kind of attacks that have been coming in from different parts of the globe, all launched through the PAC activist group. So, and we were able to secure all the critical infrastructure with zero downtime. And and another important aspect is also not to stop the real traffic, or that is also another important in terms of security. You should not be hindering with the basic functionality of that particular application, and ensure that that is also happening smoothly. And this is what we've been able to achieve through our security model, to block all the attacks, and also to ensure that all the real traffic or the legitimate traffic passes through without any hindrance. So this is what we've been able to achieve for our national security. And the fact that it's a completely made in India solution is something that really makes it, really proud of. Yeah.
Lakshmi, I want to talk to you a little bit about SaaS environments and customer-facing digital platforms too. Data says that it's these two areas that serve as primary entry points for malware distribution. Do you feel the onus must now lie on upgrading cybersecurity, and this onus must lie on consumer companies, both large and small, more so now than ever before?
Definitely, yes, I would say, because now data is a key aspect that every eye is prying on, right? I mean, across the globe, right? And that's the most important asset. And everybody wants to know what's happening on their aligning side, right? So this is where, all the customer-facing applications or these retail e-commerce platforms all are kind of really getting targeted. And we've seen a lot of attacks happening, where a lot of customer data got breached, maybe through Domino's or e-commerce or payment websites and things like that. So this is where, their security guards have to be really strong, right? Because they deal with the millions or billions of customer data, which is very critical. And if that's there, like if you have your credit card information, your personal details, your phone number, your email ID, everything should not be going to the dark web without our knowledge. Especially when in India we have the DPDP law coming into picture. Even though we were pretty late in getting all these compliances up and running, we have all the GDPRs and all in Europe since pretty long. So this is where all the personal, identifying information should be collected with security mindsets coming into picture, and also we dealt with in transit and in rest. I mean, all the customer data should be, properly validated and safeguarded, be it whichever enterprise that's handling these kind of critical data. So it's very mandatory for all these facing applications to have the right tools and firewalls. And now also there's a lot of API transactions also coming into picture. India being one of the largest in terms of the UPI payments, the transactions happening in India is the largest in terms of the global transactions that's happening, right? So we definitely will want our own indigenous solutions, especially when you see during the Russia-Ukraine war, Visa and MasterCard stop their services. So that's when they could have a fallback of an indigenous payments platform. This is why for our country, we should fall back on our indigenous solutions for security. Right. Because today, the countries that are allies could become enemies tomorrow. So we could not afford to trust our security on any foreign vendor. So that's why we need to have Make in India solutions in picture.
Right. So this push towards indigenous software, does this provide an opportunity area for Indian cybersecurity startups? And at what pace do you expect the market for AI-enabled anti-malware and anti-spyware to grow in the near to medium term?
Yes, definitely. I mean, as you perfectly said, this is the perfect platform, and it's not anymore a luxury to have our indigenous solutions. Like we have our homegrown drone systems coming, and we banned all the other international drones in surveilling or in any part of the country, right? So this is where, and we've seen many apps also getting banned in India. right? We're trying to have our own indigenous solutions. We have seen, our own versions of WhatsApp coming into picture for transactions and for daily communications. I've kind of heard of across scenarios where, our defense, people, their movements were all tracked through all these, the communications that they've made through these applications, right? Apps. So this is where they've homegrown their own communication app that it's not tracked by any other foreign vendors. So this is where we would definitely need. It's more, not more any luxury. It's a requirement. It's a basic necessity to have our own system for security. So I would urge a lot more Indian cybersecurity companies to come up, so that our country could defend and fall back on our own solutions rather than depending on any other vendor, because our data should be secured within our borders with our own system, so that anything goes wrong elsewhere, we have some central outages happening with other security solutions as well, which had hours of downtime. So this should not affect our country.
So at what pace of growth, Lakshmi, do you expect the market for AI-enabled anti-malware and spyware to actually go about growing in the immediate future?
Definitely. I mean, this is the most, fastly growing. If you see the, aggregate growth rate, this is the fastest. This is like $1 billion market. Especially security or application security is $1 billion market, and we have to invest heavily. Our governments will have to support the upcoming startups in the space. Just like in Israel, the governments they fund the security startups and they take it globally. So this is where, as Prophase, we are also trying to take Indian cybersecurity global into the global market. So that's where I would urge the governments and all the indigenous system to promote our own indigenous security solutions, so that that's the best and the safest way that we can safeguard our own data and our own critical infrastructure, so that it does not go into the wrong hands.
Well, on that note, it's great to have you join us and share some of those insights with us. Let's hope for a cyber-secure 2026 for Indian enterprises overall. Good speaking to you as always, Lakshmi Das. Right, moving on now. Bengaluru-based health major Narayana Hrudayalaya has reported a good set of numbers for Q2 this fiscal, and the management has now said its long-term infrastructure funding plan will extend over a 15 to 20-year period. In an exclusive chat with ET Now, the company has outlined its capex plan and says headwinds in healthcare are here to stay. Here's a slice of that conversation.
I don't think there were tailwinds that may not repeat again, but there are continuous headwinds that the industry keeps facing. So to that extent, I don't want to give a forward guidance on whether the margins are normalized. But what I can definitely say is that for that revenue throughput that we achieved, the cost base that we have achieved, we can sustain, subject to any headwinds that may come depending on how, there are various, like, for example, the new labor law has got passed. We are still assessing the impact of that. There are cost headwinds that keep coming in the healthcare sector. Currency is a big factor because a lot of our equipments are imported. So there are many headwinds that come, but I would definitely say that the cost base for Q2 is normalized.
More court action now. The Delhi High Court has allowed Dr. Reddy's to continue producing and exporting semaglutide, but has barred domestic sales till 2026, which is when the Danish pharma giant Novo Nordisk's secondary patent expires. The weight loss drug, known for applications in products like Ozempic, has been the bone of contention ever since Novo Nordisk alleged that Dr. Reddy's had begun producing finished formulations of the drug in question without its consent. Dr. Reddy's, on its part, has claimed that the patent is invalid and that its production was only meant for exports. My colleague Charu Singh sent this report.
A very interesting case is unfolding at the Delhi High Court currently. In a hearing that was conducted on Tuesday, two parties fought it out about the ownership of an ingredient that is very essential for the production of weight loss or type 2 diabetes drug known as Ozempic, also sold as Wegovy by Novo Nordisk. On one hand, you have an Indian company called Dr. Reddy's Lab. On the other hand, you have a Western company known as Novo Nordisk. Now, what is happening here is that an ingredient called semaglutide is manufactured outside by Novo Nordisk. It has its patent rights over the product in several countries. Meanwhile, Dr. Reddy's is saying that it is selling a finished product using that product in those countries where this patent right for Novo Nordisk does not exist. Meanwhile, the Western company is saying that the Indian company is infringing the patent rights and is not following the fair procedure, while the Indian company is saying that the Western company is just trying to monopolize the entire process. While the court has for now allowed the Indian company to export its product in Western countries but not sell it in domestic markets, the Western company is just saying that this is not fair. A final decision is awaited. Meanwhile, until March 26, the Indian company is not allowed to sell the product in the Indian markets. We'll keep the developments rolling to let you know what happens next.
Moving on to court action now. The Supreme Court has asked the Election Commission to consider Kerala's request to postpone its SIR deadline for at least a week beyond December 13th. The court has asked the Kerala government to make a presentation to the EC by today and has ordered the EC to factor in the state's representation. The court called Kerala's appeal quote-unquote just and fair and asked the EC to look at its representation both sympathetically and from an objective perspective. Kerala's conundrum with its SIR drive is that two different elections, local body polls involving 1,200 self-government institutions, gram and block panchayats, as well as assembly elections, will both be held over the course of the next few months. The court's willingness to now consider a revision in timelines might come as some relief to the state. Keeping with court action, the Supreme Court has also stayed POCSO proceedings against former Karnataka Chief Minister B.S. Yeddyurappa. Issuing a notice to the Karnataka government, the apex court said that it was remanding the matter back to the High Court while putting a pause on trial proceedings. Yeddyurappa, remember, had challenged the High Court's refusal to quash proceedings against him in the case involving a 17-year-old. Remember, the former chief minister was being tried for behaving inappropriately, allegedly, with a 17-year-old back in March 2024, based on a police complaint registered at that time. Right, moving on to politics now. 2 months since the deadly Karur stampede which killed 41, actor turned politician Vijay has had his request for a roadshow in Puducherry, scheduled to be held on the 5th of December, turned down by the local police. We're told that police officials in Puducherry informed the Tamilaga Vetri Karagam, or the TVK, that the party could look to have its next meeting at an open venue instead of a roadshow. It is also learned that the police has given the party a few suggestions. Reports say the TVK has been cautioned by the cops to plan better and not rush into organizing a political rally at such short notice. The TVK leadership, we're told, is reviewing the request and will decide on its next course of action shortly. And finally, it was meant to be an opening day to look forward to, but at Wonderla's first amusement park in Chennai, wet weather and technical snags caused multiple disruptions on day one itself. Parkgoers reported multiple rides at Wonderla getting stuck halfway, while park personnel began working on last-minute fixes even as operations were underway. In a video message, Wonderla's chairman and MD Arun Chittalapalli apologized to visitors and admitted that power outages and the rain caused both delays and snags. Well, on that note, it's about all the time we have on this episode of South Central. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. But for the moment, it's goodbye from us.